I know, right? If it stays this core group, we're just gonna go eat and talk. I'm like, you know what? Right.
Off the lake or anything like that?
No. Oh. I mean, it must have been icy this morning.
Mm-hmm.
Like.
Yeah. Well, last night is what you know.
Really?
You're supposed to get to like in the 40s this week.
Yeah.
I'll be in shorts. Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Just like, am I on trial?
Yeah.
That's how you start a conversation when you want it to lead your way, just ask questions. And then
Yeah.
they can't disagree with you later when you make a statement. So then first it's, would you agree? Then I said, would you agree that, if one else was the, title, and if they don't, that this will be a show of an example, they may be out.
In cases. Okay, I'm figuring out the Zoom thing. I know it's been a while, but you know, you can learn a little bit more each day. So, but good morning, everyone. Thanks again for joining us this morning. I'm Cliff with Cross Country, and we have Kate Manful here as well from our Cross Country Mortgage team. And today we wanted to just kind of talk about what's new, what's coming, and what's happening, you know, in 2024, and kind of the state of the market with, you know, just overall with not just interest rates, but the, you know, the market in general. So we've got some great information and some things that we wanted to kind of talk about and, you know, and discuss today. One of the great resources that Cross Country does have is called MBS Highway. Now, this particular system that we have, it's great. I mean, it's real-time, up-to-date market analysis on what's going on, what's causing things to, you know, to change, what are the factors in it all, and it's a great, you know, overview of what's kind of going on in our market each and every week. And it's a wonderful resource that we have, and we just really wanted to make sure and, you know, share some of this with you guys so you had an understanding what we get to see as loan officers on a day-to-day basis, and how we get our information and how we try to educate, you know, clients and borrowers in regards to, you know, rates and when things can be done, you know, for them to help them, you know, maximize their buying power. So lots and lots of good stuff. But first, what I wanted to do is we've got this great video that I wanted to kind of show you. There's actually two. The first one is from the beginning of the year with Barry Abib. He kind of talks and breaks down what the outlook of 2024 looks like from a market and interest rate standpoint. So what I'm going to do is share my screen so everybody should be able to see it here. So hold on one second. I think I can just do this and find. Let's see, where would it be? Okay, so it is the Zoom. Okay, all right, real quick, everybody on Zoom, can you see my screen now that says feel good about 2024? Can you guys see that?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start this video. There's two of them that I wanted to show that are just really, really good and really, really informative. So we can kind of just take a listen to what Barry's got to say and go over everything in regards to what to look for in 2024.
Yeah, is it you? As far as the outlook for 2024, feeling good. first day of trading. It's going to the downside right now for mortgage-backed securities. As bad as we're down 17 basis points right now, we were down as much as 24. And the reason for this is move up and continue to about 3.5. Because of the activity in the red state. U.S. has a few of these that are attacking people. And Iran now has sent over into that sanctions as oil prices have risen about 2%.
Hold on, everybody. I'm going to pause this real quick.
Unplug the TV, maybe they'll be able to hear the sound. Just unplug the TV from your computer.
Unplugged.
Just see what happens if you unplug it.
Okay.
That sometimes is the problem because the sound's running through the TV. Now they play.
Okay.
Just see if they can hear it because we can hear, we don't have to see.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, guys, I'm going to I unplugged that to see if you guys can hear it now. Let me know if you can hear it. Let's turn this up some.
From a technical standpoint, there are also very important levels that I will show you.
Volume. I know I can.
So we'll be following the news events of the week and seeing how, especially this event,
We can't.
It would not be
Okay.
wise for Iran to escalate things.
Yep.
Because
Yeah, I'm going to
back
turn
in
it
the
around.
late 80s, the last
I'm going to
time
start it over,
something
guys,
like
just so
this
you guys can hear from the beginning. Now that you can hear it, I didn't know you couldn't hear it, so.
It's a new day, it's a new dawn, it's a new life. And as far as the outlook for 2024, feeling good. You know how I feel. Running free. You know how I feel. So I send apology. You know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life for me. And I'm feeling good. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to 2024's first day of trading. And it is going to the downside right now for mortgage-backed securities, although not as bad as we started. We're down 17 basis points right now. We were down as much as 24. And the reason for this, and a move up in the 10-year to about 395, that's about a 7 basis point move to the upside on the 10-year, is because of the activity in the Red Sea. So the U.S. has sunk a few of these ships that are attacking the oil tankers passing through the area. And Iran now has sent over a warship into that area. So tensions escalating and oil prices have risen about 2% between Brent and WTI, West Texas Intermediate. You're seeing a move up in oil prices. Of course, oil price increase means inflationary fears, and that's what we're seeing. But since the initial knee-jerk reaction, things have calmed down a little bit. And from a technical standpoint, we are also at some very important levels that I will show you. It's an important week this week, so we'll be following the news events of the week and seeing how, especially this event, would play out. Now, it would not be wise for Iran to escalate things because, back in the late 80s, the last time that something like this was tried, the U.S. sank a lot of their military in one day. So perhaps Iran has some memory. It's a new day. It's a new dawn. It's a new life.
Hold on, gang. I know where it left
As
off.
far as the outlook for 2024, I'm feeling good. Iran now has sent over a warship into that area, so tensions escalating and oil prices have risen about 2% between Brent and WTI, West Texas Intermediate. You're seeing a move up in oil prices. Of course, oil price increase means inflationary fears, and that's what we're seeing. But since the initial knee-jerk reaction, things have calmed down a little bit. And from a technical standpoint, we are also at some very important levels that I will show you. It's an important week this week, so we'll be following the news events of the week and seeing how, especially this event, would play out. Now, it would not be wise for Iran to escalate things because, back in the late 80s, the last time that something like this was tried, the U.S. sank a lot of their military in one day. So perhaps Iran has some.
It's like freezing right there. It's so weird. Give it a second. Hold on, gangs. Technical difficulties. This is really good. Hopefully it plays. It'll finish playing out.
It's a new day. It's a new dawn. It's a new life.
Yeah.
The outlook for 2024.
Let's see if we can get past the sticking point. Hold on, gang. Let's see. Okay, well, this one doesn't seem to be wanting to work right now. So let me just, I'll click on the other one that was really good and informative too. That was from yesterday's. So let me shrink this one and I'll pull up my other update that I had. Let's find it. Yeah, it's such a good video, but for some reason it's not playing right. So, all right, where's the one I wanted to? Oops, here we go. This one, guys, was from January 19th, just a couple of days ago. This was a really good update. So we'll see if we can get this one to kind of play through. Go back to sharing my screen. Okay, share. All right, so hopefully this one will work because this one was a really good one too. We're gonna have to let Barry know he's got to get his videos straight. I don't know why they're not working right now. Okay. Well, guys, sorry about that. For some reason, these were working the other day. You know what? Here, let me try. Sometimes it's through. Try one other quick thing.
Did they upload it on YouTube?
That's a good question. I do not know.
It happens to me every time I teach a class on Zoom and I'm trying to play a video.
It's so crazy.
It doesn't it's like too many points to stop like play or something.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try to go because sometimes when I go through Google, I don't know why it works better. Hold on one second, guys. We'll just try it one more time. All right, here's from the 23rd, but I want the one. Okay.
Okay.
No problem. All right. We'll see if I can get today's to play.
Leading economic indicators are supposed to forecast the direction of the economy. Now they've been predicting.
Okay, today's is working, guys. We'll see if we can get through this one. Can everybody still hear it okay?
It's just something that's being imagined in our mind.
Sorry for the delay, guys. Yep.
Should I follow the smoke over my own fire? And my seed signals above it? Or am I imagining it all up in my mind? Looks like there's something there, yeah, there's something there. Should I follow the smoke open my...
Good morning, everyone. Mortgage bonds are down a little bit, down 6 basis points. 10-year Treasury up a little bit in yield. There are some important technical levels that we will look at. But first, let's start with economic indicators, the leading economic indicators. And this is something that is supposed to give us some clues as to, are we headed for a recession? What's the direction of the economy? And there's many different sectors here. So it was down again for the 21st time in a row. This was down. It was down just 0.1%. But the Conference Board is still saying that these signals are pointing to a recession when they're seeing it in Q2. That's just up ahead. So April, May, June is when they're seeing a recession. Now, of course, we won't know that officially because the National Bureau of Economic Research, they're the referee in this, or the umpire. They don't actually make the call until months and months later. If we do indeed see a recession that happens in Q2 of 2024, they probably won't tell us about it and make it official, maybe until the end of this year, sometime in Q4. So bear those things in mind. Now, these recession indicators that are pretty reliable from leading economic indicators may take some time. The Conference Board does say that they think that the recession will be short, however.
Yeah, and we all know that interest rates move lower during a recession. Now, if you look at that headline number, the down 0.1% month over month, this would have actually been weaker. One of the components in the LEI report is stock prices and how they perform. Looking at the S&P, it's been very strong over the last month. So if you remove that, this number would have actually declined by 0.3%. And we have a lot of auctions taking place this week. Starting off today, the 2-year auction followed by the 5- and 7-year auction. And these are shorter term, but there is a lot to be absorbed. In fact, there's 162 billion that needs to be absorbed. We'll have to take a look at what the appetite is here, as it could move the bond market.
Yeah, it starts today with the 2-year note auction for 60 billion. So that's a lot, as you mentioned, Megan.
Now let's take a quick look here at the charts. You can see mortgage-backed securities are down 11 basis points, and they are still trading in this range between the 25-day moving average ceiling as well as support at the 50-day. But you'll notice here, they have seemed to form a base right around this 101 level. We've tested this level many times. We've dipped beneath it temporarily, but have been able to close pretty much on it or above it. So right now we are dipping beneath it. We have to watch this closely, because if we can't get back and close above it, there is about 20 basis points of room to the downside before the next level of support, which is that 50-day moving average. One thing that is a positive for us is that Barry mentioned this yesterday, the stochastics are oversold. If we can get a bid in bond prices here, we could see a crossover. And really the signal here is crossing above this 20 level here, which gives you confirmation of a positive stochastic crossover. When we take a look at the 10-year, it's up 4 basis points to 413, still trading in this range between the 200-day moving average and the 50-day moving average. Has just a little bit to go before testing the 50. The last time we tested it, it has held. And the stochastics are in an opposite position here to mortgage-backed securities. So what we want to do is begin the day floating. And if the market allows us to, I think we'd like to try to float into Friday, where we get that personal consumption expenditures data, where the core rate is expected to fall, but we'll see what the market gives us. But begin the day here floating.
Okay. All right. So that was actually a really good update, because I hadn't had a chance to watch today's yet. And that was a really good thing, what he was talking about the Treasury and the 2-year average. And he recommended floating right now, because normally when we get these updates, guys, they tell us to, and this is real time also. So depending upon when we get notifications during the day, it'll let us know, hey, if rates are going to make a move up and investors may price for the worst, they'll send us an email and a message on our a text message that says, hey, we advise you to, if you have any loans out there, to go in and lock, because it feels like the market may turn. But when we get updates like this, when it says, they're actually advising floating, which means, okay, that could be pricing could be better. So, and he said probably by Friday we'll have another good indicator of what the market's going to do, how it's going to shift, and what other different factors, if it does change, they're going to let us know in real time. That's what's great about this kind of program. So it's unique to cross country. I know every time that we do get these, and we do have the opportunity to kind of let buyers know, because they're asking us all the time, hey, is it going to be good enough time for us to refinance, or, is now a good time to buy? And it really is. I mean, you heard the data there as far as like what they're thinking, the recession and things like that. I mean, we basically were in one all of last year. It seemed like, when you have that inflation kind of go what it was, and with home values still going up, which has been, probably the most unique indicator, because normally in a recession, values really come down, but it seemed like home values were, for the most part, I think, remaining pretty steady. I would think. What would you think on as far as values?
It was strange because it's not everywhere, and it's not every process. So just somewhere.
Just somewhere, okay.
Depends on where we had the bulk buyers.
Yeah.
Depending on the price range and location. So definitely somewhere on the rise. And I would say they probably all were. It's just unrealistic sellers weren't getting their price.
Okay.
Too.
Okay.
They just weren't going up.
Right.
Okay. Okay.
So the ones that sat, it was probably just an unrealistic seller, don't you think?
Yeah.
That they shouldn't have been. They surpassed the already inflated price because they thought where they should have been in a normal market, maybe 250, 350 would have been their price. They want to be 500. And that's just not going to cut it. No one's going to overpay that much.
Okay.
They might have 2 years ago. Last year.
Yeah. Because I remember, back, what was it, 2009 when it was really bad? Yeah, 8 and 9. It was, what the difference about that time as opposed to now, guys, is the mortgage loans that were being done back then, on top of the standard, 30-year fixed and regular ARM rates, they were doing a lot of those option only ARM loans as well that had like negative amortization on those. And, for those of you that aren't familiar with that term, negative amortization is, there was loans that were being written where the borrower can make a couple of different sorts of payments. They could make a minimum payment, then an interest only, then a principal and interest payment on top after that. It gave them the option to make those kinds of payments. And I mean, really, that particular program was really engineered for, I would say, seasonal self-employed borrowers, like maybe during the slow time of the year. It gave them the ability to make a minimum payment as opposed to making their full principal and interest, just in case if their normal revenue wasn't coming in each and every month. But a lot of people unfortunately took this loan, and at all different facets of employments, and were just making the minimum payments, and they're starting to see their balances go up instead of going down, and they're like, why are we paying? And I don't know if it was just not educated on the product that they signed up for, because whoever was writing these loans, really should have explained that and kind of got those kind of details, but that was part of it. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's okay if you've got a student who's going to be a doctor or a surgeon. That's what they would do for them, which they still currently do.
Right. Right.
But you can't plan on, in real estate, let's just say, for example, that we think you're going to do better next year, so we're going to give you a loan based on what you say you're going to make.
Right. Right.
And then that's
yeah. In investment properties, I mean, if you had a 720 credit score, you could get 100% on an investment property, as far as financing on it. You know what I mean? All those kinds of things. That's why between then and now is just completely different. That's why they've had such a restriction on what they're going to lend borrowers. That's why the process of making sure that people can actually qualify for the loans is a little bit more tedious, than years past.
Well, partly the big difference between then and now is also we had a saturated market of listings, which we don't now.
Right.
And I'm sure you remember $8,000 cash.
Yeah.
Credit from the government for buying a house. So if you buy a house this year, you get $8,000.
Yeah.
And that wasn't like $8,000 for your down payment. It was
a stimulant.
Cash. Yeah.
House in 30 days.
Yeah.
Investors were giving
For sure.
their car in the garage to get their house. Like they let that fly.
Yeah.
I remember having an investor saying, I'm going to give the bonus to whoever buys this property, I'm going to give them the car that's in the garage.
Wow. Unbelievable. Yeah, that's crazy stuff. Oh my goodness. But yes, everybody on Zoom too, I'm going to now show And I can email everybody a copy of this too, because I have this in PDF form now, but I wanted to make sure and show everyone what.
You're not gonna have a video, right?
No. Oh, yeah. Yeah, so they can see this too. Hold on one second. Get plugged back in here. Okay. So now let me go back to the Zoom. Oh, yeah, it's Kate. Okay, hold on. Okay, all right. Can everybody see my screen again with my little cross-country notes that I have up here? Can you guys see that okay? Okay, perfect. All right, great. Just wanted to make sure you guys could see that. Okay. Now, what this is great information, guys. And what's great about this too is it just shows you that the kind of the change in the market on some things and kind of like what's happening. And so first, here, let me hand these up real quick, guys. You guys get down this. Hello, buddy. Had to take a phone call. For me, but okay, guys. All right. So what's new and what's happening in 2024 for the mortgage industry? Lots of great things. I wanted to make sure and just, put some keynotes, together here for you guys, just so you guys could kind of see and have an understanding of what changes are, what is happening, what's new, and how can this benefit, not just your buyers, but your sellers too, when they're looking to purchase another property. So I always like to start with, okay, what's this year's loan limits? Now look at conventional financing for single family. The new minimum loan amount to keep it under jumbo, guys, is $766,550. Okay. Now, I mean, I know that it's very rare that we see these types of loan sizes, not all the time, especially in Ohio, I get, but the important thing of really is just understanding the way that the market has changed. I mean, because guys, before, back in 2002, when I got into the industry, I think the maximum loan size for a conventional loan at that time before it went into jumbo pricing was like 415, something like that. Anything over 415 at that point was considered jumbo. It's just unbelievable how things have changed, and just to kind of get that kind of understanding of the difference of the time frames of what our market is now, what people's values are now. People are making more money now, and how things just over time change in this market. I mean, it's really unique, and it's just really kind of cool to see. And FHA was even lower, as you can see on here too, guys. The single family for FHA right now and this is for Stark and Summit County. I already checked them both through FHA's site. The minimum loan amount size now for them that they can do is $498,257. Years ago, it was like, I think the max FHA loan that you could even have was 221,000. I think it was the max you could even do, because there's no jumbo or anything like that option for FHA. That was it. You couldn't get a loan amount higher than that. Unbelievable. Yes, that's a great question. I mean, really, the difference really between the two is really just the financing, the loan amount size. And so when you're talking, jumbo rates, they are for the most part pretty similar, to what a conventional rate is. It's just the qualifications are just a little bit different. In most cases, anything that's a jumbo loan, which in this case for conventional, anything that would be over 766,550, the base loan amount size would either require more reserves, by the buyer. In most cases, they require another appraisal to have two appraisals to make sure that the house is worth what they're purchasing it. So, the qualifications and the guidelines for those programs are just a little bit, they would just need a little bit more overall. They have more credit score requirements too for jumbo loans, and those types of things. And so that's what's nice to kind of, get an idea of the difference between the two and the different qualifications. So anybody that's got 766, 550 or lower, those are just based on the standard Fannie or Freddie guidelines. We don't need any extra, overlays that, some of the investors would put into place, for a client to, to get a jumbo loan. So the extra 6 or 12 months reserves is not required. Like I mentioned, the second appraisal and things like that. So it's just nice to kind of get an idea of why this number is so important and what the pathway of getting the loan is going to be from the buyer. You know what I mean? It's going to be a lot different if they're able to keep their loan amount within the standard, conventional limits. So very cool. Oop, I see a question in chat. Let me make sure this is something that. Okay. Yes, Megan. Yes, a jumbo loan. A jumbo loan is a loan amount that any buyer can, obtain that is over the standard conventional loan limits. That's exactly what a jumbo loan is. So, say for instance, you got a client that's looking to buy, $1 million house, and they're putting down 20%. You know what I mean? So more than likely they're going to be they're going to be financing, say 900,000, we'll just say as an example. And that's going to put them in within a jumbo loan. So anything that's over the conventional loan limits is going to be considered a jumbo loan. So, good question. And they are obtainable. We do have them. We can go up to, I think, a couple $1 million in loans, as far as a mortgage size, for the buyers that are looking to obtain that. So good question. Any other questions at all before I move on to the next portion of the notes here that I have for you guys? Any questions on FHA? As you can see on their VA, they've actually increased theirs as well. So the VA actual loan limit is, they matched, basically what they do is they kind of follow the same suit as conventional. So in Ohio, all over Ohio, they don't really go by county, they just go by state, is 766,550 for their max loan amount as well for a single family. So good information. All right, so now I'm going to scroll down here a little bit more to, just the overall, down payment programs and things like that. So these are pretty standard. There wasn't really any new updates or too many changes, except for, which I'm going to get to here in a moment, but for conventional financing, first time home buyer, it's still a minimum of 3% down that anybody can, if they qualify, or at least one of the borrowers meets those qualifications, they could potentially put as little as 3% down. So FHA is still 3.5%, and VA is still, option as 100% financing. But what's unique and what's new, and I know I mentioned this, I think, at one of the meetings, but just in case if you guys weren't here for that, which is new for now, that went into effect as of end of November of last year. So for now, any buyer that's looking to purchase a property as a primary residence, that is a 2 to 4 unit property, which means they have to live in one of the units. So it's going to have to be deemed as their primary residence. They can now purchase this with a conventional loan with putting potentially as little as 5% down. Okay, so that's a great new, interesting, fact that we can do now. At least a year. Yep, at least a year. Good question, Gina. Yeah, so they've got to live in the property for at least a year, pretty similar to like FHA in that regard. But yeah, so because before, a multifamily purchase, convention loans didn't really have an option for a minimum amount down. It was a minimum of 15 to 25% down, depending upon, the unit price, even if it was your primary residence. So this is something that could be something great, for clients too. Anybody that's looking to possibly, get into having rental ownership properties at some point, buying a property, living in one of the units, getting the other ones rented out. You know what I mean? As long as you meet the compliance guidelines, you're in that property as your primary residence for that full 12 months. You know what I mean? And then you decide to change that, you can. Yes.
Thinking about what happened in 2008, 9, 10.
Uh-huh.
With guidelines dropping in the percentage down, do you think that could create another foreclosure issue? Because, if you've got 20% in, you're less likely to get foreclosed on one because your payment's probably less. Right. You've got money to lose. But 3% on a conventional, is that a good thing in the future for people to have more skin in the game, or is that creating, do you think, an environment where we could have more foreclosures because you've got less to lose?
Yeah, I don't know if you guys heard all of that, but what Gina was mentioning, guys, even on Zoom, was, is this market going to be strong enough for buyers to basically put down 3% or 5%? Is that going to cause another potential, who knows, foreclosure crisis? And I think what they're doing now, from before, is that they've really kind of learned, I think, from their mistakes, because the fact of the matter is, before, when they were looking at some of the guidelines, there was a lot of gray area, a lot of out of box type of scenarios that came up that they just didn't know how to handle. I mean, there were loans that people had that were um, W-2 employees, okay, which means they either had salaries, they were paid hourly wages, maybe a set fixed schedule each week, that were getting loans based on stated income and stated assets. You know what I mean? So, which is, it was beyond me that was even allowed. Again, those types of loans were engineered and designed for self-employed borrowers that, hey, that's why we look now at a 2-year history to see what these people are making or what they're claiming from their business and how they're working. But when you start messing up with things like that and allowing these types of loans, it's, along with that negative amortization loans that we had discussed earlier, those kinds of things, it was just a recipe for disaster. And so now it's different. Yes. Exactly. Yeah. That's why things are just so much more, stringent, I would say, when we're getting people and buyers qualified. We really want to make sure that they, number one, can afford the place. And, because anything that reports to your credit report, all those kinds of things, it's all about payment history. That's why your credit score is such a strong indicator of how people pay bills, because it shows how you pay them. You know what I mean? That history of on-time payments, it's all about the willingness to repay the debt, is what your mortgage qualification is going to be based on. So the stronger you are at that, the easier it's going to be for you to get a loan. You know what I mean? But it's not to discourage anyone, because it's all about just making sure that they have the understanding of what they're getting into and going over their finances, because we want people to buy houses and be in homes and, have that home ownership, that quality, and just not just renting, because, renting will always be there, but, it just seems like you're paying somebody else's bills. So I think we have another question in chat here. Let me pull this up. Okay, I see buyers making higher down payments. The payment is, why is that on there? Here we go. The payment is the focus. Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, that's a great statement. And this is what we've been seeing a lot lately too, guys, because this last year I started to notice a lot of not just transactions being down, but most of the transactions that were happening were a lot of cash buyers. I mean, so people are having cash, either they're downsizing, people are selling their primary and maybe getting a smaller property and just paying cash, or people are starting to focus more on getting more money saved up to use towards their down payment to help with their overall payment, all those kinds of things. So yeah, that is definitely something that we're seeing more. And that's not always the case, but it's definitely, more than I would say than ever. There's a lot of people that are always asking about, pulling from 401k, or, getting gifts from family to help get the payments where they want it to be. Because, when rates change, if you got to put maybe a little bit more down to kind of help get you into that payment that makes, things more comfortable for you. So yes, we're definitely seeing a lot of that. Okay. And then real quick too, guys, I wanted to kind of go over just a couple of things. Some of the down payment assistance programs. So we are still rolling into our new year with our CCM Smart Start. This down payment assistance program, guys, has really been a game changer for a lot of new buyers, especially ones that can fit the Fannie Mae Home Ready guidelines, which is they meet the area median income requirements for that particular county. And so, say for instance, I had a client that was a first-time home buyer. She was buying a property by herself, and it was in Stark County. And I think the area that immediate income requirement was like, I think it was 56,000, and she made 48,000 from her job. So she immediately qualified for it. We gave her, I think her purchase price was 125,000, I think was her purchase price. And so we gave her, 2% of, towards her. It wasn't quite the 4,000, I think 2%. Let me do the math here. I think it's let me see what it was, because I don't think it was. All right, her purchase price was 125,000, and she got 2%, which, yeah, 2,500 bucks. So she got a $2,500 credit that just went applied towards her down payment over her closing costs. We got to apply it. It's not a grant. It's not any kind of down payment assistance program that goes on there like a second mortgage like OFA does or Communities First. This is a true grant that comes straight from cross country, and it helped reduce, her cash to close, because she was already working on saving up money. She had enough money to save up for her appraisal, and then she wanted to get inspections. That $2,500 credit, guys, helped with all of that. She was now able to get the inspections that she felt comfortable wanting to get for the property. And now she knows everything that was kind of going on with it and what she was getting into. And it was her house was in great shape too. And, just anything like that to kind of help. And that's for any borrower that can qualify for it, for the Home Ready program. And we're working on getting others towards, FHA. I know that one's been in the works. I know they're still kind of trying to get that, that one kind of ironed out with the pricing and how that's going to work. But it's a great, great program that we are using each and every time. And then some of the other down payment assistance programs that we're offering too comes through our Communities First. There's our CCM Community Promise. This is the same thing. As long as it meets the home rate requirements, they can potentially get up to $6,500 with no repayment. This is a new one that was just launched, here in 2024 as well. And so we'll get some more information and more details on that, on some different programs for that. That one's more state specific. So I'm going to make sure and see which ones are going to be launched in Ohio for us. Okay. And then also, guys, the seller concessions chart, because I get texts and phone calls, all the time when it comes to, what buyers are allowed to get and what and how much, depending upon, each situation is different. And I know what hasn't been as much of a market for a buyer to get seller concessions, but I really believe we're going to be going back to that, and that's going to start. I'm already starting to see it. So this is good information. So on my seller concessions guide here is the top part you'll see is just for conventional financing. So anytime you have a borrower that is putting down less than 10%, so say 3-5%, less than 10%, the max seller concessions that that buyer can receive from the seller is 3%. Okay. And but if they do end up putting more down, so over 10% or at least 10% or more, all the way up to 25% down on a primary or a second home transaction, they can receive up to 6% in seller concessions. And then it's even more than that if it's over 25%. They can get as much as 9% in seller concessions. So just things like that to kind of think about and be aware. Now, investment properties, it doesn't matter how much they put down, the max is 2%. That's always been that way, and it'll probably stay that way, for the remainder of, those types of transactions. Just like FHA doesn't matter how much they're putting down, you can get up to at least 6%. And then on VA loans, the max seller concessions, no matter how much they put down, is 4%. Okay, so that's one thing that I just wanted to make sure and kind of go over so we have that. And then probably the crown jewel of what Cross Country is working on, for all of our referral partners and our buyers agents is, because we know the changes that are going on, with you guys too, in regards to buyers agents and how they're getting paid and, how the commissions are going to come out and whatnot. I know Cross Country is working on a way to work in up to 2% of a buyer's agent's commission with the transaction. So it's all kind of like in the early stages, but they're working on that and they're trying to find a solution that's compliant wise, that is, we can get that figured out. So that way you guys that are the buyer's agents are getting paid, and it's not just the list agents and things like that. So we're trying to do anything that we can to help our partners, be able to get paid what they're paid, because I think I've said this a bunch of times at each meeting. Your part of the transaction is the most vital of the whole thing. I mean, without you guys helping these buyers and sellers understand real estate, the transaction as a whole, and what all the different aspects of it, I mean, it's just critical. I mean, there's been too many times where I've seen for sale by owner transactions that have gone array and completely. It was just so even more frustrating, for the buyers, because they didn't understand everything that they were getting into. They just thought they were buying a house. They didn't really figure out, okay, well, hey, well, what if this happens? What if this goes on? Everything that you guys, or professionals and let them know about and prepare them for. And it's just a nightmare. So I will always be a very big advocate for you agents, because everything you guys do and the process of what you guys have to go through, bar none, is the best part of the transaction. I know we do play an intricate part into it, making sure the financing and all that kind of stuff gets done. But you guys are the magic makers. I mean, that's just how it is. And so this is just a way that Cross Country is trying to help our agents, in any way that we possibly can.
Be added to the phone, or how would you? Where would that?
Yes, I think what they're going to do is it's going to be something, I don't know if it's going to actually be on the loan itself, because we have to think of appraisal, and all those kinds of things. So I don't know if it's going to be something that just may be able to be financed in with it without, or it kind of being like a mortgage kind of a thing. Yes.
Concession.
Mm-hmm.
To actually just have the seller pay.
Yeah.
Or not.
Yeah.
Ask for more seller concessions,
Mm-hmm.
and then have an addendum that states a portion of that goes towards the buyer.
Yeah.
Commission.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
That's a great point.
Because honestly, when I was at Cutler, our contract said.
Really?
We were doing that, but that's been 10 years ago.
Wow.
So if it was a commission that was lower than 3%, we would ask for that deficiency as part of the seller concessions.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was a description on the agency disclosure that stated
Mm-hmm.
that however much that added to, let's say $1,500 of the deficiency, would then be paid in addition to the commission.
Wow.
But after then came out of the seller.
Okay.
And so that's why these numbers are so important, because you can't do that.
Right.
The max they can get is only 3% and the buyer needs those funds.
Mm-hmm.
But how often do we ever need 9% in concessions?
Right.
So for that kind of a loan and that amount down payment, that leaves a lot of room for a percentage to go towards commission.
I'll see if I can turn this up a little bit. They were asking you to kind of repeat some of that, Gina. I'm turning up my volume to see if you guys can hear Gina a little bit more.
Oh, I can come over. So
okay.
Where do I need to start?
Gina's not a quiet person.
Yeah. Yep.
What I said was, with those concessions that are maxed out, there's some room in the higher seller concessions to take a percentage of that to go towards the commission. So what I mean is this, if they're only offering 1% commission, there's a deficiency in my mind at minimum of 1.5%, but let's just for the fun say 2%. And so then we're going to ask for the seller concessions plus the deficiency of the commission.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, just as we're negotiating price and we're negotiating closing costs and concessions, the prices, it lands wherever it lands. And then the seller, in fact, is paying the buyer's agency commission because we've asked for it in return from concessions. Now, you can't just put that on the purchase agreement that way and then expect you're going to get it, because then the buyer is going to get all those concessions.
Right.
It has to be added on an addendum stating that this amount of those concessions is actually going to the buyer's agency brokerage in addition to the commission that they were already paying.
Wow. Okay. Good. Did you guys get all that?
Yes. My follow-up question is there going to be any issues on the lending side, because they have to see that addendum in the purchase agreement, correct?
It doesn't matter to the
I don't think,
lender.
yeah.
If there's a max number of, let's just say the 9% concessions there, and the buyer only needed 3% in concessions, let's really think about it.
Mm-hmm.
$9,000 per every 100,000, closing costs are never that much.
Right.
So there's a lot of room, the more the buyer's putting down to allow for that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we were doing it. I can tell you, this isn't just a thought in my head. I was doing that 10 years ago when I was at Cup. And so we must have had an issue with down commissions. And I'll say down commissions because back then we were used to 3.5%.
Right, right.
And then when people were trying to give us 3 or 2.5, we were losing our mind. And so
Wow.
that's why that got put on the contract.
So Gina, you're saying the 9%, but has there been any issues with like a 4% or a 2%?
So it
you
just
know, in-
depends on what your buyers need in closing costs for starters and their loan type. So if you get rid of that text option.
Yeah,
So if you look at those max numbers, so that's what's so important. If a buyer's only doing conventional and they can only get 3% in concessions and they need all that 3%, then we can't do it.
I see.
right.
That's the only place where we have an issue. But
Yeah,
if they're putting, you
at
know,
least over
down,
10% or more down.
then we've got 6% to play with. And again, if we're talking a $300,000 house, why would anyone ever need that kind of money towards their closing costs? They wouldn't. So therefore, there's room for that.
For sure.
Would you have the conversation up front with your buyers then?
Absolutely, because they have, so that's where our new buyer's agency comes into play.
Yeah.
So right there, it already says if there's a deficiency, the buyer's willing to pay that deficiency. But then here's the conversation and we can script this out.
Mm-hmm.
But Mr. Buyer, you're not gonna pay it. You know why? Because we're gonna ask for the seller to pay it on your contract in concessions. So you can sign the buyer's agency the way it stands, but I'm never gonna collect from you because we're gonna get it from the seller.
Nice. Okay.
No one's gonna disagree with that.
Right, right. That makes a lot of sense.
Every day.
Yeah.
Wow. I did see a question about USDA seller concessions. Sorry, I forgot to add that on my list. I was running out of room there. Yes, for USDA, that they follow the same suit as FHA, so you can get up to 6% seller concessions for USDA. So good question. I saw that in the chat as well.
And for the USDA, it doesn't matter how much they put down, it's
Nope.
still 6%.
Yep,
Okay,
that's still 6%. Yeah,
All right,
that's exactly it.
thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So good stuff. Lots of good information, guys. Lots of good new updates. You know, hopefully I'll be able to get that other video at some point to show down the road here for some of these meetings, but because it was just such a good one. But at least you kind of got to see today's and what the market is and the update and kind of like what's going on, what factors are changing the market. You know, we've got the, you know, everything with Iraq, any kind of war, you know, everything, the Ukraine, all those kinds of things. It's not just jobs report and inventory. There's so many different factors, why, you know, guys, globally that can affect what the market's going to do, you know, and it's really hard to kind of. Oh, perfect. Yeah, I'll send this over to her. That's a good idea. So lots of good stuff though, guys. And so anytime you have any questions, you know, please feel free to, you know, to give me a call, reach out to myself, you know, Kate or Jessica. We're here to help. And we'll make sure that you got your buyers are in the right situations and we are updating you with the right information. So you guys have that. And like I said, if you need anything else at all, just feel free to give us a call. And any other questions at all before we conclude here? I see one of them on chat. Let me make sure. Just to say, feel free to just speak out too. Let's see what we got.
Can you just email this to us by chance?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Everybody here, what I'm gonna do in case you guys, how do I move this thing? There it goes. Okay, all right. What I'm gonna do, guys, is I'm gonna put my email address real quick in here for those of you that don't have it. Okay, this is my email is on there real quick. Go ahead and write that down and then just shoot me an email and I'll forward you over this whole thing that we just created. And I'll send it over to Amanda too, so she can make sure and get it out to everybody, but I can send it to you individually. Yeah. Okay, so, but thanks again for jumping on, guys. We really appreciate, you know, your participation and joining us today. And if you guys need anything at all, you know, please let us know. Okay, sure, I gotta hit stop share now. Okay. All right, guys. You guys enjoy the rest of your day.